After the successful launch of the IRU NELTI initiative in Tashkent a few days ago, allow me from Bukhara, the city also called the fascination of gold, to present my sincere wish to transform this new initiative into a new success story for the IRU. I wish all the best not only to the IRU NELTI initiative, but also for a prosperous exchange of trade and trade development between all the continent and forever.
Nine months have elapsed since the start of the project. This has been a period of intense work for the IRU, for its associations and hauliers. To recap, several companies from 9 countries have been participating in the project. Throughout the period, they have been making non-stop shipments along 3 principal routes of the historic Great Silk Road. At the same time, they have been recording conditions en route using special driver's journals developed using internationally recognized UNISCAP methodology. What are the principal outcomes of the project? 145 round trips traveling through the territory of 24 countries. The drivers spent 4,167 days on the road and crossed more than 1,000 international borders. 4,200 tons of high-quality goods were shipped, from food products and semi-manufactured goods to medicines, equipment, diplomatic consignments, consumer and electrical goods. Road transport is not the world's fastest method of delivery, nor is it the cheapest. It cannot be compared with the pipelines that transport millions of tons of oil, nor can it be on a par with the railways, a topic European politicians never tire of talking about, and their multi-million-dollar state subsidies. However, the IRU NELTI project has permitted to offer concrete proof that road freight haulage between China, Central Asia and Europe can be commercially viable, safe and reliable.
This slide shows the overall initial results.
Автомобильные перевозки между Азией и Европой безопасны.
What's more, road transport, unlike other forms of transport, can achieve colossal economic knock-on effects. In the same way as the ancient caravan routes did, vehicles do much more than just link people and nations. They are also responsible for creating new jobs, helping to integrate the economies of neighbouring countries and giving them access to all major world markets, from which they have previously been excluded. The Chinese have a saying, if you want to get rich, build a road. China has been giving the world a very graphic example of this concept in recent years. What have been the most important lessons learned in the course of this project, which should interest not only the business community, but also politicians on various levels and the leaders of international organizations? The most striking lesson is the fact that without the need for vast investments, the existing road infrastructure is already in an adequate state to support a significant increase in road haulage along all 3 main branches of the Great Silk Road. And the problems? Of course there are problems, but the main task today is to fill these empty highways with real volumes of road freight. This leads on to the second main lesson. The problems having faced today are all the result of human factors which can be easily remedied with political will. The vehicles along NELTI routes spent 39,000 hours idling in queues, or 39.7% of the total time en route, and were forced to hand over bribes with a total value of $144,000. When a driver spends nearly 40% of his time waiting at border crossings and nearly half of all his expenditure, how can we even talk about real economic factors? So how can these problems be tackled? Clearly, corruption cannot be eliminated overnight. But there is a solution. Procedures for crossing borders need to be made, streamlined, and transport as straightforward as possible. This is where the governments of transit countries can play a significant role. They need to sign up to the key UN international trade and road transport facilitation agreements as soon as possible. At the same time, they need to set aside the current ineffective system of total control at border crossing points and introduce internationally recognized risk management systems. This is our third main lesson. Regarding the choice of routes, the shortest route from China to Europe is the Central Route. However, it involves crossing two seas, the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. The IRU NELTI project has shown that in the best case scenario, the Central Route can be covered in 5 to 7 days. But this necessitates dovetailing the ferry schedules, which are currently geared towards servicing rail shipments, at least as far as Caspian Sea ferries are concerned. New logistical solutions need to be found, which involve thinking outside the box. A step towards this would be the setting up of major logistical and consolidation centres in all the countries which share a border with China. As well as acting as staging posts, they could in future also take on certain manufacturing functions prior to shipping goods to their end users. This forms the basis of the fourth and fifth lessons learned from the project. Many more instructive discoveries were made over the past months. They will all be analysed and the consequent recommendations set out in the form of a roadmap. The implementation of the roadmap is the essential feature of Phase 2 of the IRU NELTI project. Companies and associations who have been participating in the project have already requested this. To date, the most important feature is to provide an interface between policy, national interests of individual countries and business interests. Public-private partnerships needs to be interpreted in the widest possible sense. Many procedures have already been introduced and are developing successfully. The process has only started. Nevertheless, it needs to be considered where the main thrust should be directed. Where should decisive changes in the next 2 years be? Principally in the fields of regulation and institutional reform. The move from an outdated bilateral regulatory approach to the multilateral regulation of international road shipments is already starting to take place. These processes have already been initiated in the larger regional formations in Eurasia. When combined with the setting up of the Eurasian customs union and the introduction of the electronic pre-declaration of cargoes, this will significantly simplify and speed up the delivery of shipments. The implementation of Annex 8 of the 1982 UN Convention on the Harmonization of Frontier Controls of Goods in all countries will also have a positive effect. Volumes of traffic over the 3 IRU NELTI project routes will even out. A factor in this will be the opening in 2009 of the Kashgar-Andijan-Osh Highway and the implementation of the trilateral agreement between China, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. Proper regulation of the Caspian Sea ferry schedules will also lead to a significant rise in shipments along the IRU NELTI Central and Trans-Caucasian routes. The anticipated addition of China to the TIR Convention will lead to a gradual opening up of internal markets and an increase in cargoes being manufactured in central and southeastern China for export westwards to Central Asia and Europe. All this and much more will lead to radical changes in Eurasian relations in the next few years. This is the start of the formation of a real market for road freight haulage, the establishing of large-scale logistical chains, including the creation of major consolidation centres to process cargoes and multi-transport shipments using ferry crossings over the Caspian and Black Seas. This period will see the first pilot shipments of cargoes from China to the USA, transiting via Central Asia and the Caucasus. The current financial crisis and credit crunch will only serve to speed up the development of these processes. Experience has shown that road freight haulage is always the quickest to adapt to economic crises. The current crisis will be no exception. International trade will soon start to recover between the 3 principal centres of world economic growth, and the revitalization of the Great Silk Road will shortly become one of the most important elements in the contemporary system of both world trade and of human relations.